so much, everybody. I really appreciate the warm welcome. Thank you, Zakola, as always, for inviting the LLC to speak here and for accommodating us so graciously. I really am in awe of seeing all of you here today. It's a Saturday. It is a Saturday when you don't have to be here, but you are. And that is so heartwarming because what you're talking about today, sexual corruption, gendered corruption, it's something that has such a real impact on people's lives. And it's something we need to talk about and we really need to engage with to make sure that it's not something that just stays present in our society. So just a little starting point about who the LLC is, what do we do? We're a law firm, we're a human rights law firm, so we do a lot of work in the gender-based violence space. And we recently started a project that actually looks at the law around sexual corruption and tries to see how can we develop it to make sure that victims of sexual corruption are protected. Because that's really, really important. What sexual corruption is, just on a very basic level, it's where someone expects sexual favors in return for benefits or services that someone would ordinarily be entitled to. So what that looks like, if we have to think about it, it's if you go to collect your grant, or if you go to try and register for a housing opportunity, or if you go to register or try and complain at your municipality about any service that they're supposed to give you that you're not receiving right now, and you're met with, I can sort that out for you if you sort something out for me first. That's what we're talking about when we talk about sexual corruption, all right? And right now, it's a sad reality as a lawyer to say this, but our law doesn't do a good enough job of actually protecting who is the victim of sexual corruption. Because in that interaction, the person who is made to suffer is the person who is expected to perform sexual acts. And right now, the law doesn't actually take that into account. And the law looks at that person and the person demanding sexual favors in the same way and criminalizes both of them. Now you can see why that's a problem, right? That doesn't sit well with you, I hope. It doesn't sit well with us at the Legal Resources Center. And what we're trying to do through our focus group or focus work on sexual corruption is try and change the law. The law in South Africa is a wonderful thing. It's not something that stays as is forever and always. It's supposed to develop, it's supposed to change, and it's supposed to try and take into account the context that it finds application in. So we can change the law when it's really bad. And right now, this is one of the areas that we're focused on as an organization. And I'm really excited because I know from experience that the rest of today is going to be full of conversations where you really unpack sexual corruption and really unpack the nuances and the intricacies of that, the things that make it complicated, the things that make it so awful in our society, the abuse of power that is so present there. But I just want to say something quickly about that, tying to the theme more directly, about sexual corruption in a digital age. I do a lot of work at the LLC on corruption generally. I also do a lot of work on gender-based violence. And I do a little bit of work on digital DBT, big tech, right? And what I can tell you is, unfortunately in South Africa, we see corruption so normalized, right? I mean, I even see it in the legal system. I'm based in the Eastern Cape. If I go to the Mthatha High Court, it's just known, like just how rife corruption is in that court and trying to get a case heard. We also know, unfortunately, how normalized gender-based violence is. How it's accepted when it really shouldn't be. And when you link those two, it's no surprise that we do see sexual corruption becoming something that's increasingly normalized. And I think, unfortunately, the digital age, digital platforms have a role to play in that. One hand, if used correctly, and I'm hoping you'll end today with an idea of how you can use digital platforms, how you can use social media to combat sexual corruption, to advocate against it. I'm hoping that that will be where you end off. But at the same time, you need to be aware that social media can do a lot to normalize and make sexual corruption something we think is okay, right? We see it as a platform when sexual corruption plays out. where people ask for sexual favors. But the other thing is we see these narratives and these ideas of what being a woman in the world looks like today, what the hustle is all about. And it can sometimes be used in a way that's so positive, that's so great, that really celebrates female entrepreneurial spirit, but sometimes also can normalize this idea of what women have to suffer through just to ensure that they can move through life. And my challenge to you today is, as you consume media, as you use social media, try and see where you actually pick up on that. Try and see where you realize this is starting to sound like it's saying something that I know is not okay is fine, and then say something about that. Yesterday we had the national shutdown. We had to think a lot about what do we do to normalize gender-based violence in society. And we often think about gender-based violence very much in an intimate partner setting, and that's very true and valid. But don't forget that it also takes place within a corruption paradigm, that it also takes place in the idea of sex for grades, sex for houses, like the expectation from people in governments that sexual services should be given before people can actually access services that they have a constitutional right to. Don't forget that that also is something that we need to stand up against, and we also need to raise our voice against. It feels scary sometimes because there's a very large power dynamic there. We're coming up against the power of the state, and that does sound scary. I don't know if that scares you. I say this as someone who litigates against the state all the time. Sometimes it really does scare me because there is a lot at play there, there's a lot in their favor, but we should never be scared when we stand up. When we stand up and we fight for the rights that we have, and when we stand up to fight against sexual corruption. I'm really excited for where you're going to go today in that conversation, and as always, the Legal Resources Center is here to help with that as well. If there are experiences and things that you think you might need the law to try and help you with as well, we're always someone that you can reach out to. We have offices in Johannesburg, we have offices in the Eastern Cape, in the Western Cape, and in KZN. And this is work that we really truly are committed to as an organization and focused on, because we recognize that the law has let people down. And we don't think that's okay, and we want to do something to change that. But I hope that today you'll also see that sometimes as people, we let our communities down when we normalize sexual corruption. And that's something you can change every single day. And I hope that you do. Thank you so much for the time. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for listening to me.